Hello, everybody, and welcome to this next morning session, which is Education and Accessibility. My name is Laura McCoy. I am the Curator of Natural History at Manx National Heritage on the Isle of Man. So today, for this session, we've got three talks. They are 15 minutes each, with 5 minutes at the end of each talk for questions. So if the online attendees, if they'd like to put any comments in the chat, somebody will be monitoring those for questions at the end. So there'll be 5 minutes for questions. Just to let you know, we will be stopping for a 2-minute silence at 12 o'clock, and I'll just that's at the end of the first talk, and then we'll continue with the rest of the session. And so, without further ado, if I could welcome Anna Massignan to the front, and the first talk is Addressing Accessibility, Ideas for Inclusive Natural History Displays from the National Museum of Ireland Natural History. Welcome, Anna.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Anna, and today I'm gonna talk you through accessibility in museums, especially for visually impaired and blind people. So here's a definition we probably all know. It's the icon definition of museum, and I'd like to highlight the accessible and inclusive part of it. Museum has to be accessible to allow their visitors to come in and enjoy themselves. So I'm working in the Natural History Museum in Dublin, and the museum is hosted in an old building, and as every old building, we have our own accessibility issues. For example, the paths to access the collections are very narrow and the floors are uneven. And of course, we have loads of stairs. So there's going to be a big renovation, and Paolo is going to talk a little bit through a little bit more of this. Sorry. I'll just point out a few things we're going to work on. So we'll try to build a lift, work on the uneven floors, work on the redisplay, probably adding some QR codes to access some information about the collections, make the museum accessible for specific visitors in specific part of the days or the week. And then obviously we are gonna work on tactile models or objects that can allow visually impaired and blind people to explore the collection. And I'd like to talk through this part because my previous experience gave me some knowledge, and I'd like to bring this knowledge into this renovation project. So before my previous job, I didn't know that about 0.54% of the global population is blind, and about 3.69% of the global population has from a moderate to a severe visual impairment, which is a lot. I was working in the Natural History Museum in Pisa, and as you can see, it's an old building. It's very beautiful, but very old. And again, we had a lot of accessibility issues, so we want to address them. In particularly, I was working in the aquarium of the museum, and in the aquarium, which was on a basement, we had an underground room that has a very steep descent to access it. That is obviously impossible to access for blind people, but also wheelchairs or people with other disabilities. So our project was split in two. We decided to create a tactile panel that shows 5 of the species that are available in the museum in our tanks from the whole aquarium, and then address the problem of the underground room through an accessible video. I'll start talking first about the tactile panel. Because our idea was to give our visitors a haptic experience. So we want them to engage with our collection, and we want to add depth to their experience when they're coming and interacting with it. And you may wonder, why didn't we just give them, for example, an audio description of what was available in the room? Because we thought that they could just listen to it, sit on their comfy sofa in the living room, and they didn't have to come to the museum to do that. So we want the engagement. Our idea for the tactile panel was to give them the shape of different fishes, the size of them, and the colors. And maybe some of you is wondering why colors, like why does it matter for blind people? From our perspective, the meaning of a color, let's say red, may be different for each of us. So maybe the red I see is different from the red you see. But the fact that we have all experienced it makes dialogue possible. So now the question could be, how did you do that? Well, we associated colors with textures that people can touch and interact with. We have a lot of experimentation. It was very fun. We had a lot of mistakes and we learned through the process. So here's some of the things we tried. We were working with soft fabrics for the color red, and we attached it with some glue. The glue went all the way through the fabric and it was very hard and the softness was completely gone. Then we were trying to work with smooth surfaces, applying glossy varnish. But if you don't have a surface that is smooth on the base, the varnish won't cover anything and won't give you the feeling you want, basically. Again, we were trying with fabric. This time we applied it with double adhesive tape, which was great. But then on top of that, we had to put some very thick sand and we used glue for that. And again, the glue went all the way through and it was completely lost. Here we were trying with different materials. So these are fishing and hunting pellets. Unfortunately, the cuts in between, in the middle of the balls, it's very rough and you don't have the smooth bubble feeling, so this didn't work. Here we thought we were very close to the solution, but we actually weren't, because we tried this with a blind person and he said that what we thought was a fine sand didn't give him back the same tactile feeling of the thick sand. So there was no difference for him, even though we thought there was a massive difference. So here's, in the end, what we used. We had electric cables for the color red, and I'll show you how we used them. Then the sand went for the color gray. We had the soft fabric for the green, a sort of velvet. Then we had a sponge for white, and the hunting pellets were used for both yellow and black, and I'll show you how we used them too. So here's the process of how we built our tactile panel. We wanted to be cheap as possible. So we used some fishes in the museum when they were dead. We had them in the freezer. So we grabbed them, we cleaned them because they have a film on top, and then we laid them on sand with a film plastic in between. And then we got a cast of them. We used some very soft silicones to get a cast, and then pour in the silicone some polyurethanic resin that gave us half of a model of a fish that we called Emmy model. On this model, we applied the materials to get the texture. So here's an example of how we use the electric cables for the red. And you can see these bits here are the black, and you can see better here the sand for gray. And then we got a second cast of it that this time incorporates the textures in our model, so that in the final result, which is not super final because you can still see we had to work on the edges basically, but the textures are incorporated with it with the model, and it gives it a very strong final result basically. Just to show you, as I promised, here's the yellow on the right. Sorry, okay, sorry. That's the yellow, how we use the hunting pellets for the yellow, and on the other side there is the black, so it's a different way of distributed on top of the surface. That's the second prototype we got. I don't have a picture of the first one, but more or less that's how the panel looked like once we had visually impaired people to try it. We had 7 adults and 4 kids. They tried, they gave us many feedbacks. So the final product is actually different. this is how it looks like in the end. We add the legend on the right. We had Braille text that explained each colors and the texture that is associated with it. And then we had our fishes and the names in Braille too. The panel is placed under inclusive video, a video that is just before the underground room. The underground room that I was showing you is very hard to access. So you may wonder what makes the video accessible. Basically, what we did was contact a blind researcher in an institution that we knew worked with blind and visually impaired people, and they helped us merge the voiceover with the audio description. So then when a visually impaired or blind person listens to it, it gets an idea of what's appearing on the video. And then we also add subtitles both in English and Italian for all the people that can't hear the voiceover. And that's it. Thank you very much. And thanks to all the people that contributed.
Well, I think we need to. So we've got 5 minutes or a few minutes left for questions. So one thing that I read to the mic. Sorry. One thing that I thought was quite interesting is obviously how you built the textures of the fish, but how robust were those textures with the models, like in terms of long-term use?
So the texture themselves were very strong because they were incorporated in the polyurethane resin that we use for the model. Our issue in the end was the color that we applied on top. We applied on top on color, like very bright colors, because the contrasts are very important for visually impaired people that can still see some colors, but those were coming off later, like 1 year later, because of people touching it. So that's something we should fix, yeah.
Does anybody else have any other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was thinking about the texture that people who can see the fish, was there any problem with false interpreting the morphology of the models of the fish? So when he sees the structure, he really thinks that maybe this is how the fish looks in real life.
Like when people see shape. I think he's saying if they can feel different textures, would they think the fish is actually shaped like that instead of just colored like that?
I think that thanks to the legend on the side where we said, okay, these texture correspond to color green or yellow, these help them recognize where the color is in the body of the fish, but then shape and size are exactly how they are in nature. So I think that's how it works.
Oh, thank you.
Question from online. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. So could you repeat the name of the material used for the models, please?
Polyurethanic resin.
Even slower?
Polyurethanic resin.
Polyurethane.
Resin.
Resin, thank you. And also, did kids and adults express different perspectives or ideas on how the models felt?
Yes, they definitely did. For kids, it was extremely easy to navigate the panel. They understood immediately what was going on, and every texture was very clear for them, while adults has more issue. They were the one who gave us like most of the feedbacks were like, oh, this is not very distinguishable. This is, I don't know, not clear. Kids, no, they were they were very good.
Thanks, Anna. That was fantastic. I just was wondering, I know you said you worked with an organization, but did they show you how to make the models? And was that like something you did in-house, and was there much budget needed for it?
So no, we had a very, very tiny budget. That's why we didn't use, for example, a 3D printer. That would have been probably the best solution, but we had no money. So we did it in-house because the museum had a lab, and they had their own artists building all the handling collection and all the exhibitions, so we could use their materials and use their orders to get our own materials. And we worked with many associations, actually, some of them are here. So, Unione Italiana Ciechi e Ipovedenti, it's a group of blind and visually impaired people that come together and gives you advice. If you want, you can contact them. They have their own meetings, and they can give suggestion. And the CNR of Pisa, that's where the researcher was working, and it's a research center.
Hi, thank you for your talk. I was wondering, is there a kind of a recognized universal set of textures that respond to very different individual colors?
No, there isn't. We were looking for something, we wanted something standardized, but we couldn't find anything, so we made the colors up. We started like trying to think, oh, how red would feel to me, but immediately realizing that was very hard to work with that. Sometimes we just couldn't use the material we had in our mind, so no, in the end.
It's cool. Maybe there's a gap in the market. You can
Ah,
start
true.
developing it on behalf of everyone else. So, thank you.
Yeah.
I had something else to. When I was working in Warwick, we had a really fantastic group called Visualize, who came to the museum to help sort of like guide us through our museum as if you are a visually impaired person, and they were such a fantastic group to work with because they really helped you sort of put yourself in the position of somebody that's visually impaired. And like you, we had thought that we'd put in things that would be helpful, and then they basically went straight up to them and said, yeah, this means nothing to me. And you're like, oh God. So yeah, when you would do a replica of say there was a cast of a fossil, and you thought, well, yeah, I mean, this looks fantastic. It's exactly how the fossil is in real life, but they can really get hands-on with it. And they would say, yeah, but this is just like weird bumpy shapes. This is useless. Like, I don't know what this means. So actually having those textures, all the differing textures, I thought that was a really clever idea. So, well, thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Oh, yeah, one more question. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes, actually, yeah. We'll do the 2-minute silence very shortly. So, thank you very much. Thank you, Anna.